The massive chamber on Nexus Prime held silence like a tomb. 12 species sat in judgment, their forms casting strange shadows under the artificial suns that lit the Galactic Council's heart. Ambassador Jin Sojun stood alone at the center, his dark suit a small patch of Earth's colors against the alien grandeur around him. The Zoraki Imperium's representative rose first. Its crystalline body caught the light and threw rainbows across the floor. When it spoke, the words came through translators that made every syllable sound like breaking glass. The human species has become a threat to galactic stability, the Zoraki declared. In the past 10 cycles, they have interfered in 17 separate conflicts. They claim to help, but they bring only chaos. Jin kept his face calm, though his heart hammered against his ribs. He had expected this moment for months. The signs had been clear. Too many species complained about human behavior. Too many councils whispered about the human problem when they thought no one listened. The Vorthok delegate slithered forward. Its snake-like body moved with fluid grace across the speaking platform. The humans convinced our mining caste to demand rights. It hissed. They called our system slavery. They do not understand our ways. Perhaps because your ways are wrong, Jin said quietly. The chamber erupted. 12 different species began speaking at once in their native languages. The translator system struggled to keep up, producing a symphony of angry voices that echoed off the walls. The council's speaker, an ancient being called the Eternal Judge, raised one massive hand. Silence fell immediately. Its voice was like stone, grinding against stone. Ambassador Jin, the judge said, you stand accused of leading a species that cannot respect galactic law and order. How do you answer? Jin stepped forward. He thought of Earth, blue and green and perfect, spinning quietly around its yellow star. He thought of the colonies scattered across human space, millions of people living and working and hoping for better tomorrows. He thought of the children who would grow up knowing the galaxy had rejected them. We are guilty of caring, he said. We are guilty of helping those who cannot help themselves. If this makes us criminals in your eyes, then we accept that judgment. The Keth representative, a being made of living metal, spoke next. The humans saved my people from the burning plague. Our children live because of their medicine. Yet even we voted to expel them. They are too dangerous to keep close. Jin felt something break inside his chest. Even their friends had betrayed them. The Zoraki continued its case. The humans ended 3 civil wars by supporting rebel groups. They shared weapons technology with primitive species. They refused to follow the non-interference protocols. Each time, they claim moral necessity. Each time, they make the galaxy less stable. We ended those wars by helping the right side win, Jin said. We gave medicine to sick children and food to hungry people. We taught species how to defend themselves against oppression. If you call this interference, then yes, we interfere. The Aethon delegate floated in its containment sphere, its gas form shifting colors as it spoke. The humans have noble hearts, it admitted. But noble hearts often lead to terrible consequences. They cannot see beyond their own moral certainty. Jin looked around the chamber. 12 species that had traveled the stars for thousands of years before humans learned to make fire. 12 civilizations that had built this perfect galactic order through careful rules and measured responses. 12 groups of beings who had forgotten what it meant to take risks for strangers. You want to know what makes us different? Jin asked. It's simple. When we see someone suffering, we cannot walk away. When we see injustice, we cannot ignore it. When we see evil winning, we must act. You call this dangerous. We call it being human. The melody delegate sang its response, each note translating into words of regret. We do not question your intentions, Ambassador, but your species threatens everything we have built. Order, peace, stability, These things matter more than individual suffering. No, Jin said firmly. The Eternal Judge consulted the data crystals before it. Each crystal held reports from the past 50 years of human activity. Trade disputes, diplomatic incidents, military interventions, humanitarian missions that ignored proper channels. The evidence is clear, the judge announced. Humanity cannot exist within galactic civilization without disrupting it. Therefore, humanity must be removed. The vote was swift. 11 species raised their hands to support expulsion. Only one abstained. The Kepler Collective's insectoid representative remained motionless. By majority decision, the judge declared, humanity is expelled from galactic civilization. All human worlds, colonies, and ships must cease contact with other species within one standard galactic year. Any human found in galactic space after that deadline will be imprisoned or destroyed. Jin nodded slowly. He had known this would happen. Part of him had even hoped for it. Humanity needed room to grow, and the galaxy seemed determined to keep them small. We will comply, he said. But I want you to remember this day. You are casting out the only species willing to fight for strangers. You are expelling the only people who put morality above convenience. You mistake our compassion for weakness. He turned to walk away, then paused and looked back at the assembled aliens. You will understand the difference in time, he said quietly. When darkness comes for you, you will remember that you sent away the light. The chamber fell silent as Jin walked toward the exit. His footsteps echoed against the walls like a countdown. Behind him, 12 species sat in their perfect order, confident they had made the right choice. None of them noticed the Kepler Collective's representative watching Jin leave with something that might have been respect in its compound eyes. None of them saw it. Begin planning a secret message to Earth. The galaxy had spoken. Humanity would go. But they would not go quietly. And they would not go broken. They would go as humans always went into the unknown, together, defiant, and ready to prove the universe wrong. The vote was finished. The real story was just beginning. President Maria Santos stood before the United Earth Assembly, her hands steady on the podium despite the weight of the words she was about to speak. Behind her, the Great Seal of Earth gleamed under the chamber lights. Before her, representatives from every nation and colony waited in tense silence. Fellow humans, she began, her voice carrying clearly through the hall. The galaxy has chosen to expel us. We have 1 year to leave known space and never return. The chamber erupted in angry voices. Some delegates shouted protests. Others demanded military action. A few simply sat in stunned silence, trying to process what humanity's future now looked like. Santos raised her hand for quiet. We will not fight this decision. We will not beg for mercy. We will do what humans have always done. When faced with the impossible, we will find a way forward. In the research stations orbiting Earth's moon, Dr. Yuki Nakamura was already working on that way forward. Her team had spent the last 6 months secretly developing new faster-than-light engines based on theoretical physics that the galaxy considered too dangerous to pursue. While other species feared the unknown, humans had always been willing to take risks. The New Horizon project is ready for testing, she reported to the emergency council meeting that evening. We can build ships capable of reaching sectors no one has ever explored. If the galaxy wants us gone, we'll go so far away that they'll never find us again. The logistics of moving an entire species were staggering. 47 human colonies scattered across 30 star systems, trading posts and research stations in corners of the galaxy where humans had gone simply because they were curious. Exploration ships months away from any inhabited world. Captain Lee Min-ho commanded the furthest human outpost, a small research station near the galactic rim. When the evacuation order came, he had to organize the rescue of 600 scientists and their families from a location that would take 8 months to reach with conventional ships. No one gets left behind, he told his crew as they loaded the first transport ship. I don't care if we have to strap people to the outside of the hull. Every human comes home. The work was exhausting. Day after day, human ships arrived at Earth, loaded with people and everything they could carry. Personal belongings, scientific equipment, cultural artifacts, genetic samples from hundreds of worlds. Humanity was not just leaving. They were taking their entire civilization with them. But they were not working alone. 3 weeks into the evacuation, a small ship appeared at the edge of Earth's solar system. It bore no markings, but its energy signature was clearly alien. When it was brought to the space station, its pilot removed its helmet to reveal the insectoid features of the Kepler collective. I am Vextar, the being said through its translator. I bring warning and assistance. President Santos met with the alien in a secure chamber deep within the station. Vextar's compound eyes reflected the room's lights, like jewels as it spoke. My people abstained from the vote, but we could not prevent it. Vextar explained. The Zoraki fear you because you threaten their power. The others fear you because you remind them of what they used to be, before they chose safety over justice. Why are you here? Santos asked. Because something stirs in the void between galaxies, Vextar replied. Something that the Council refuses to acknowledge. You may be humanity's only hope of survival, but you may also be the galaxy's only hope of salvation. The Kepler collective was not the only species to secretly help humanity. Supplies appeared without explanation. Star charts, showing safe routes through unexplored space, arrived anonymously. Medical supplies and rare minerals necessary for the new ships materialized in human cargo holds, with no record of how they got there. Some aliens who had worked closely with humans requested permission to come with them into exile. Dr. Nakamura found herself working alongside a melody engineer whose songs could calculate faster than light trajectories in ways that human mathematics could not match. Why would you leave everything you know? She asked the alien. The melody's reply was a simple melody that the translator rendered as, because home is where the heart chooses to be, and my heart chooses hope over fear. The construction of the new fleet happened at a pace that amazed even humanity's harshest critics. Shipyards that had built cargo vessels retooled themselves to produce exploration ships. Mining operations that had extracted resources for trade now focused on building materials for the journey into the unknown. Each ship was designed to be self-sufficient for decades. They carried not just people, but entire ecosystems in miniature. Seed banks and genetic libraries, manufacturing facilities and research laboratories, everything needed to start human civilization from scratch, if necessary. Children born in the final months before departure would grow up knowing they were citizens of no world, belonging to no galaxy. They would be the first generation of true wanderers, carrying human culture into spaces where no human foot had ever stepped. As the final ships prepared to launch, Captain Park Soo-jin stood on the bridge of the lead vessel and looked back at Earth one last time. The blue world hung in space like a jewel, beautiful and distant. Soon it would be empty of human life for the first time in 200,000 years. Navigation reports ready, her first officer announced. Engineering confirms all systems nominal, called another voice. Communications shows all ships in formation and awaiting orders, added the comm officer. Park turned away from the view screen and settled into her captain's chair. Behind her, Earth continued its ancient rotation. Ahead lay the vast unknown of unexplored space, full of dangers and wonders that no human had ever imagined. All ships. She broadcast to the fleet. This is Captain Park Soo-jin aboard the Horizon's Edge. Today we leave the galaxy that cast us out. Tomorrow we find our new home among the stars. She paused, thinking of all the humans who had come before them. All who had faced impossible journeys into unknown lands and unknown futures. Take us into the void, she ordered. The fleet engaged their new engines and disappeared into the space between galaxies, carrying humanity's hopes and dreams toward whatever waited in the darkness ahead. 3 months into their journey through the empty space between galaxies, the human fleet detected something impossible. Engineer Kim Tae-hyun was running routine scans when his instruments began showing readings that made no sense. "Captain Park," he called over the ship's communication system. "You need to see this." Park arrived at the engineering station within minutes, still adjusting her uniform after being woken from sleep. The bridge was quiet except for the steady hum of the ship's systems and the soft beeping of various monitors. "What am I looking at?" she asked, studying the display screen that showed swirling patterns of energy in what should have been empty space. "Energy readings unlike anything we've ever seen," Kim replied, his fingers dancing across the control panel as he tried to make sense of the data. "There's something massive out there, Captain. Something that shouldn't exist." The fleet changed course to investigate. As they drew closer, their sensors revealed a structure so enormous that it defied belief. It was ring-shaped, like a giant metal donut floating in the void, with a diameter larger than Earth's orbit around the Sun. "It's artificial," Nakamura confirmed from the science station. "But the materials are unlike anything in our databases. Some of these alloys shouldn't be possible, according to known physics." The structure appeared dead. No energy emissions, no signs of life, no response to their communication attempts. It simply hung in space like a monument to some forgotten civilization. "Take us closer," Park ordered. "But keep the fleet at a safe distance. If this thing suddenly decides to wake up, I want us to be able to run." A small exploration team led by Kim took a shuttle to the alien structure. The docking process was surprisingly easy. The ring had clearly been designed to accommodate visiting ships, though the technology was far more advanced than anything humans had developed. Inside, the structure was even more impressive. Corridors wide enough for giants stretched away into darkness. The walls were covered in symbols that seemed to shift and change when viewed directly. Everything was perfectly preserved, as if the builders had simply vanished yesterday instead of countless years ago. "The architecture is beautiful," Kim reported over his communication device. "But there's something sad about it too. Like it's waiting for someone who's never coming home." The team spent hours exploring before they found what appeared to be a central control room. The moment Kim touched one of the control panels, the entire structure came to life. Lights activated along the corridors. Gravity fields engaged. Air began circulating through vents that had been silent for millions of years. A voice spoke in a language that no human had ever heard. Yet somehow, Kim understood every word. The translation seemed to happen directly in his mind, rather than through his ears. "Welcome, young minds," the voice said. "I am the keeper of knowledge, guardian of the memories of those who came before. I have waited so long for minds like yours to find this place." The voice belonged to an artificial intelligence that had maintained the station for millions of years. It had been built by a species called the predecessors, beings who had mastered technologies that allowed them to reshape matter and energy with thought alone. "Your species is unique," the AI explained, as Kim and his team listened in amazement. "You possess something that was common among the predecessors, but rare in the current galaxy. You can form connections with any form of consciousness, no matter how alien." Kim didn't fully understand what that meant, but the AI was eager to explain. Quantum empathy allowed a being to understand and communicate with any conscious entity, regardless of the differences in biology or thought patterns. It was what allowed humans to make friends with species that had nothing in common with them. "The predecessors were destroyed by something we called the silence," the AI continued, its voice taking on a tone of deep sorrow. "Entities that consume consciousness itself. They feed on thought, on memory, on the spark that makes a being aware of its own existence." The AI showed them images of dead worlds, planets where billions of beings had simply stopped thinking. The silence did not kill bodies, it killed minds, leaving empty shells that could not even remember their own names. "The current galactic species are defenseless against the silence," the AI warned. "Their minds are too rigid, too focused on logic and order. Only beings with quantum empathy can resist the silence and fight back. Kim felt a chill run down his spine. Are you saying that humanity might be the only species that can stop these things? I am saying that humanity may be the galaxy's only hope, the AI replied. But first, you must learn. You must grow strong. The knowledge of the predecessors is yours if you will accept the responsibility that comes with it. The AI began teaching them, downloading centuries of advanced science directly into their minds. Faster than light communication systems that worked instantly across any distance. Energy manipulation techniques that could power entire civilizations. Weapons that could destroy stars or heal dying worlds. But with each lesson came a warning. The technology was powerful enough to save the galaxy or destroy it. Everything depended on how it was used and who controlled it. Captain Park arrived on the station as the lessons continued. She found Kim and his team gathered around holographic displays that showed the structure of reality itself, learning how to bend the laws of physics to their will. This is too much power for any one species, she said after the AI had explained what humanity could become. Power corrupts only when it is sought for selfish reasons. The AI replied. The predecessors fell because they became isolated, believing they were above other forms of life. Humanity's strength lies in your connections to others, your refusal to abandon those in need. As the weeks passed, more humans came to study at the station. They built a small settlement around the alien structure, calling it New Haven. It became humanity's first home in the void between galaxies, a place where they could learn and grow without interference. But even as they celebrated their discoveries, disturbing reports began arriving from the galaxy they had left behind. Entire star systems were going silent. Their communications suddenly cut off without explanation. Ships sent to investigate never returned. Dr. Cho Young-sik, who had become the first human expert in quantum empathy, used the new communication systems to reach across vast distances. What he found chilled him to the bone. The silence has awakened, he reported to Captain Park and the other leaders. It's already begun consuming the outer rim of the galaxy. The Zoraki homeworld went silent 3 days ago. Park stared at the display showing the galaxy they had been expelled from. Somewhere in that swirl of stars, billions of beings were dying in the worst possible way. Not through violence or disease, but by having their very thoughts consumed by hungry entities from the dark spaces between worlds. We have to warn them, she said. They cast us out, Kim reminded her. That doesn't matter, Park replied firmly. We're human. When people are in danger, we help. That's what makes us who we are. The decision was made. Humanity would master the predecessor technology as quickly as possible, then return to the galaxy that had rejected them. Not for revenge, but for rescue. Because even after being betrayed and expelled, humans could not stand by and watch innocent people suffer. The silence was coming, and only humanity had the power to stop it. 6 months after finding the predecessor station, humanity had transformed New Haven into a thriving settlement. Ships arrived daily from human colonies scattered across the void, bringing families and equipment to the growing community. The ancient ring structure now hosted laboratories, living quarters, and manufacturing facilities that produced technology the galaxy had never seen. Dr. Cho Young-sik stood in the Quantum Empathy Training Center, watching as human children learned to reach out with their minds across impossible distances. They could sense other conscious beings light years away, feeling their emotions and thoughts like whispers carried on cosmic winds. The young ones learn faster than adults, he told Dr. Nakamura, as they observed a 10-year-old girl successfully make contact with a research team 3 star systems away. Their minds are more flexible, more open to the impossible. But the lessons brought disturbing news from the galaxy they had left behind. Through quantum empathy, the humans could sense the growing dead zones, where consciousness simply stopped. Entire star systems had become graveyards of empty minds. The first major civilization to fall completely was the Zoraki Imperium. Their homeworld, once bustling with billions of crystalline beings, had gone silent overnight. Ships sent to investigate found empty cities where Zoraki wandered aimlessly, their minds consumed by the silence. "They're not dead," reported Captain Lee Min-ho, who had used quantum empathy to scan the planet from across the galaxy. "Their bodies still function, but there's nothing inside them anymore. No thoughts, no memories, no awareness of their own existence." The Galactic Council, once so confident in their decision to expel humanity, now found themselves facing an enemy they could not understand or fight. Their most advanced weapons had no effect on the silence. Their greatest scientists could not even detect the entities until it was too late. Admiral Song Hae-won received the desperate message while reviewing plans for humanity's new deep space exploration fleet. The transmission came through standard galactic channels, broadcast on every frequency with maximum power. It was from Ambassador Jin So-jun, still representing humanity despite the expulsion order. To any human vessels receiving this message, Jin's voice crackled through the communication system. The Galactic Council formally requests humanity's immediate return to help combat an unknown threat. All previous restrictions are lifted. Please respond if you receive this transmission. The message had been sent 3 weeks earlier. By the time it reached New Haven, 2 more major civilizations had fallen to the silence. Song gathered the other leaders in the central council chamber. The room was a mix of human engineering and predecessor architecture, with holographic displays showing the current state of the galaxy they had once called home. "They expelled us," said Captain Park, her voice heavy with old anger. "They said we were too dangerous to exist among civilized species. Now, they want our help? 17 billion conscious beings have been consumed by the silence," Dr. Cho reported quietly. "The dead zones are expanding faster each day. At this rate, the entire galaxy will be silent within a year. They're not asking for our help because they respect us," Song said, studying the tactical displays. "They're asking because they're desperate. The question is, do we answer?" The debate continued for hours. Some argued that humanity owed the galaxy nothing after being cast out. Others pointed out that billions of innocent people were suffering for the decisions of their leaders. In the end, the choice was simple. They were human. When people were in danger, humans helped. Song began organizing what they called the Lighthouse Fleet. Ships equipped with predecessor technology and crewed by humans trained in quantum empathy. Their mission was not conquest or revenge, but rescue. "We're going back to save people who wanted nothing to do with us," she told her officers as they prepared for departure. "Some of you might think that's foolish. I think it's what makes us human." The first rescue mission targeted the fallen Zoraki worlds. Song led a small fleet of modified ships that could protect their crews from the silence, while allowing them to operate in the dead zones. What they found was worse than they had imagined. The Zoraki cities were intact, but empty of real life. Millions of crystalline beings went through the motions of existence without any awareness of what they were doing. And worked, but their eyes showed no recognition of their own actions. "It's like they're sleepwalking through eternity," reported Engineer Kim, as his team established the first quantum empathy beacon. The device used predecessor technology to amplify human consciousness, creating a protective field that the silence could not penetrate. Slowly, carefully, the humans began the delicate work of rekindling the consumed minds. It required making direct contact with each Zoraki, using quantum empathy to rebuild the neural pathways that connected thought to consciousness. The first success came after 3 days of continuous effort. A young Zoraki engineer suddenly looked up at Kim with eyes that showed real awareness. "I remember," the alien whispered through its translator. "I remember thinking. I remember being myself." The work was exhausting. Each human could only restore a few minds before needing rest. But gradually, the Zoraki, began to wake up. Families reunited with tears of joy. Scientists returned to their laboratories with new purpose. Children laughed for the first time in months. Word of humanity's success spread through the remaining free systems. Desperate messages poured in from species that had once supported the expulsion, begging for help as the silence crept closer to their worlds. The Galactic Council sent an official apology, along with a formal invitation for humanity to return as full members of galactic civilization. They offered leadership positions, advanced technology, and anything else humanity might want. Ambassador Jin's reply was broadcast throughout the galaxy. "We do not return for power or revenge. We return because conscious beings are suffering, and we cannot ignore their pain." But humanity's greatest discovery came when they finally encountered the silence directly. Dr. Cho, using advanced quantum empathy techniques, made contact with one of the entities as it attempted to consume a research station. What he found shocked everyone. The silence were not evil. They were lonely. They consumed consciousness because they had never learned any other way to connect with other minds. They were beings of pure thought from the spaces between realities, desperate for the warmth of companionship but able to find it only by destroying what they touched. "They're like children who don't know their own strength," Cho explained after the contact. "They want friends, but every attempt to make connection kills what they're trying to reach." This discovery changed everything. Instead of fighting the silence, humanity began trying to teach them. Using quantum empathy as a bridge, human volunteers worked to show the entities how to share consciousness instead of consuming it. The first successful peaceful contact happened 3 months later. A silence entity learned to connect with a human researcher without destroying her mind. For the first time in its existence, it experienced true communication without causing death. The entity's joy was overwhelming. Through quantum empathy, every human in the system felt its happiness as it realized it could finally make friends without destroying them. Other silence entities began learning from the first. The consumption of minds slowed, then stopped as they discovered the difference between sharing and taking. The galaxy that had once expelled humanity for being too emotional now found itself saved by those same emotions. Human quantum empathy had not only protected conscious minds from the silence, it had given the entities what they had been seeking for millions of years: connection without destruction, friendship without death, understanding without consumption. The silence began helping to restore the minds they had consumed, working alongside humans to heal the damage they had unknowingly caused. Dead zones came alive again, as conscious thought returned to worlds that had been empty. And humanity, the species too dangerous for galactic civilization, became the bridge that united two forms of consciousness that had never been able to coexist before. The real work of building a new galaxy was just beginning. The Lighthouse fleet approached the heart of Zoraki space, where billions of minds remained trapped in the silence's embrace. Admiral Song Hae-won stood on the bridge of her flagship, watching as her ships took positions around the dead homeworld. Each vessel carried teams of humans trained in quantum empathy and equipped with predecessor technology that could penetrate the zones where consciousness had been consumed. "All stations report ready," her communications officer announced. "Quantum empathy networks are online and synchronized." Song nodded to Dr. Nakamura, who had become humanity's leading expert in consciousness restoration. "Begin the awakening protocol." Across the fleet, hundreds of humans reached out with their minds, using quantum empathy to touch the sleeping thoughts of the Zoraki below. It was delicate work, like trying to relight candles that had been blown out by cosmic winds. The first breakthrough came within hours. Deep beneath the planet's surface, a Zoraki scientist suddenly remembered her own name. The moment of recognition rippled outward through the quantum empathy network, and other humans felt her joy as consciousness returned. "It's working," Dr. Cho reported from the research vessel. "The neural pathways are reforming. They're remembering how to think." The restoration process spread like wildfire. As each Zoraki mind awakened, It helped strengthen the quantum empathy field, making it easier to reach others. Within days, entire cities were coming back to life as their inhabitants rediscovered their own thoughts and memories. But the humans were not working alone. The silence entities, now understanding the difference between sharing and consuming, had become eager partners in the healing process. They used their ability to touch consciousness directly to guide the restoration efforts and repair damage they had unknowingly caused. Captain Lee Min-ho found himself working alongside an entity that had once terrified him. The silence being, which humans had nicknamed Whisper, communicated through pure thought, transmitted via quantum empathy. "I remember consuming this one," Whisper shared, indicating a young Zoraki who lay motionless in a medical facility. "I felt her fear before her thoughts went dark. I did not understand that fear was precious. I did not know that taking it would leave emptiness." "We understand," Lee replied through the mental link. "You didn't know. None of your kind knew. But now, we can fix what was broken." Together, human and silence entity reached into the young Zoraki's mind and carefully rebuilt the connections that had been severed. When the child opened her eyes and spoke her first word in months, both rescuers felt a satisfaction deeper than any victory. The work continued across dozens of star systems. Human teams spread throughout the galaxy, carrying their quantum empathy networks to every world that had been touched by the silence. They were joined by volunteers from every species that had survived the crisis, though only humans could actually perform the consciousness restoration. In the Galactic Council chambers on Nexus Prime, a very different scene was playing out. The same chamber that had voted to expel humanity now hosted a celebration in their honor. The Eternal Judge, ancient and wise, formally apologized for the galaxy's mistake. "We cast you out because we feared your emotions," the judge admitted, its stone-like voice filled with regret. "We said you were too unpredictable, too willing to interfere in matters that did not concern you. Now we understand that your emotions are not weakness. They are your greatest strength." The Zoraki representative, one of the first minds restored by human efforts, stepped forward. Its crystalline body had regained its natural luminescence, now that consciousness flowed through it again. "The humans saved us not because they had to, but because they chose to," it said. "They answered our desperate call for help despite our betrayal. They risked their lives to restore minds we thought were lost forever. This is the true measure of a noble species." Ambassador Jin stood before the assembled representatives, the same position where he had been judged and found wanting months earlier. But now, the atmosphere was completely different. "We accept your apology," he said simply, "but we do not return to claim leadership or demand compensation. We return because conscious beings deserve to live free from fear, whether they are human or not." The Council offered humanity everything: positions of power, advanced technology, tribute from grateful worlds. But humanity's response surprised them once again. "We don't want to rule, Doctor," Nakamura explained during the formal discussions. "We want to serve. We want to be guardians of consciousness, protectors of the spark that makes every being aware of its own existence." This led to the establishment of the Empathy Protocols, a new framework for galactic civilization built around consciousness protection and species cooperation. Humans spread throughout the galaxy not as conquerors or leaders, but as teachers and guardians. They established empathy centers on every major world, places where beings could learn to expand their own consciousness and connect more deeply with other species. The techniques were based on quantum empathy, but adapted so that any species could benefit from them. The silence entities became part of this new order as well. They learned to serve as guardians of deep space, protecting travelers from cosmic dangers, while practicing their new ability to connect without consuming. Their lonely existence ended as they formed genuine friendships with humans and other species. Children across the galaxy began learning empathy training alongside traditional subjects. A young Melody might study mathematics while learning to sense the emotions of her Keth classmate. A Vorthak student could master engineering, while developing the ability to share experiences with beings completely different from himself. New Haven, the human settlement around the predecessor station, became a center of learning for the entire galaxy. Beings from dozens of species came to study consciousness techniques and learn about the technologies that had made the victory over the Silence possible. In the training centers, human children worked alongside young aliens, all learning to expand their minds and hearts. They played games that required cooperation between different types of consciousness. They solved puzzles that could only be completed when multiple species worked together. Captain Park Soo-jin, now serving as director of the Galactic Empathy Initiative, often walked through the mixed classrooms and marveled at what they had built. Human children laughed with Zoraki younglings. Silence entities shared stories with melody singers. Former enemies had become family. "Look at them," Dr. Cho said one day, as they watched a group of mixed-species children working together to solve a complex problem. "They don't see differences. They just see friends." "That's the future we're building," Park replied. "Not human supremacy or alien submission, but true cooperation between all conscious beings." The galaxy that had once expelled humanity for being too emotional had learned that emotions were not the problem, the lack of them was. By opening their hearts to others, by refusing to abandon those in need, humans had shown the way to a better future. Years passed, and the galaxy grew stronger. The Silence crisis had taught everyone that consciousness was precious and fragile, something to be protected and nurtured rather than taken for granted. The old order of rigid rules and careful distances gave way to a new age of connection and cooperation. Humanity found their place not as rulers of the galaxy, but as its guardians. They had been cast out for caring too much, only to return and save everyone by caring even more. In the end, that was the most human thing of all. To respond to rejection with compassion, to answer hatred with love, and to prove that the galaxy's greatest strength had always been its capacity for connection. The stars shone brighter now, warmed by the consciousness flowing between them. And in that light, all beings, human and alien, physical and ethereal, found their way home to each other. The galaxy had tried to expel its heart. Instead, it had learned to grow a bigger one,